In 1953, Swanson had 260 tons of leftover Thanksgiving turkey riding in 10 refrigerated railroad cars, rolling back and forth across the country because nobody could sell it. A salesman named Jerry Thomas looked at an airline food tray and had an idea that changed how America ate dinner forever. Number 14 outsold everything Swanson made for a decade. Number 3 was the Friday night ritual in millions of Catholic homes. These 25 frozen dinners fed a nation that was learning to eat in front of a glowing box instead of at the kitchen table. Hit that subscribe button. Let us count down the 25 forgotten 1950s TV dinners every family ate on Friday night. Number 25, chicken chow mein. Before Americans could pronounce half the dishes on a takeout menu, they got their taste of the exotic from a can with 2 compartments taped together. A man named Geno Palucci was growing bean sprouts in Duluth, Minnesota, of all places, and selling them under the name Chun King. One can held the crunchy noodles. The other held a thin, salty gravy studded with celery, water chestnuts, and little shreds of chicken. Your mom would heat the gravy, pile it over the noodles, and set it on the TV tray like she had traveled somewhere. It cost about 45 cents and fed a family of 4 with rice on the side. Kids thought they were eating something daring, something from across an ocean, when really it was farmed and canned a few hundred miles away. On a Friday night in 1957, that little bit of adventure felt like the whole world had come to the living room. Number 24, Welsh rarebit. This one sounds fancy, but it was the meal a tired mother made when the wallet was thin and the show was about to start. A sharp cheddar melted slow in a pan with a splash of milk, a spoonful of mustard, a shake of Worcestershire, and if the man of the house allowed it, a little flat beer stirred in. She poured that molten cheese over toasted white bread and slid it under the broiler until the top blistered golden brown. The whole thing cost maybe 20 cents and came together before the opening credits finished. Held over from the lean Depression years, it survived into the 1950s because it worked. It was hot, it was rich, it filled you up, and it asked nothing of the cook but a pan and 5 minutes. Nobody wrote it down because everybody already knew it. That is exactly how a good recipe quietly disappears. Number 23, Franks and beans. Friday was payday in most working households, and payday meant the kids got what they actually wanted. A can of pork and beans dumped into a pot, a few hot dogs sliced into coins, a spoonful of brown sugar, a squeeze of mustard, and a shot of ketchup. 20 minutes of simmering and the whole kitchen smelled like smoke and molasses. A can of beans ran about 15 cents, a pack of Franks maybe 40, and that pot could feed 5 hungry children with seconds for anyone still standing. It went onto the TV tray in a bowl you could balance on your knee. No knife required, nothing to spill. Kids ate it in front of the westerns, boots up, eyes glued to the screen. Every mother in America knew that on the night the money finally came in, Franks and beans bought her an hour of peace and quiet. Number 22, frozen fried shrimp platter. For a family that could not afford a real seafood restaurant, and most could not, the frozen shrimp platter was a night out that came from the freezer aisle. Breaded shrimp, already fried, arranged in a tray with a lemon-shaped puddle of cocktail sauce and a scoop of what passed for coleslaw. You heated it at 425 degrees for 25 minutes, and the breading crisped back up almost like it had just come from a fryer. A box cost around 60 cents, which made it a splurge, a Friday-only kind of dinner. The shrimp were small, the tails were on, and everyone at the table felt like they were eating at a supper club. Dad would tell the kids to save the biggest one for last. That platter was proof that even a modest paycheck could buy a little glamour once a week, all of it thawed under the glow of the television set. Number 21. Deviled crab. Along the coasts, from Baltimore down through the Carolinas and around to the Gulf, deviled crab was the Friday show-off dish that came in its own shell. Crab meat, whatever grade a family could afford, was mixed with breadcrumbs, a beaten egg, a spoonful of mustard, a little Worcestershire, and a pinch of cayenne for the devil in the name. It was packed back into cleaned crab shells or little aluminum ones, dusted with more crumbs and baked until the top went crackling and golden. A single crab stretched to feed 2 people this way, which mattered when the good meat cost real money. The frozen versions showed up in seafood cases by the mid-50s, and a working family could buy the taste of a coastal restaurant without leaving the neighborhood. Set on a TV tray with a wedge of lemon, deviled crab made an ordinary Friday feel like a vacation you never took. Number 20. Frozen pizza pie. Most Americans in 1953 had never tasted pizza, and the ones who had called it pizza pie like it was a slice of something out of Italy. When the first frozen versions hit the grocery freezers, they were a curiosity, a novelty, something you tried once to see what the fuss was about. The crust came out cracker thin and a little tough. The cheese was thrifty, the sauce was sweet, but to a child in the Midwest, it might as well have been magic. A box cost around 50 cents and made enough to cut into small squares for a table full of kids. Your mom would bake it while the TV warmed up, and the smell of oregano and tomato filled a kitchen that had never smelled like that before. Nobody knew they were witnessing the beginning of an empire. They just knew Friday nights had suddenly gotten a whole lot more interesting. Number 19. Macaroni and cheese dinner. Kraft had put dinner in a box back in 1937, one nickel box that a woman could turn into a full meal, and by the 1950s it was the undisputed champion of the tired weeknight. Boil the elbows, drain them, stir in the packet of orange powder with a little milk and a pat of butter, and you had a pot of gluey, salty, wonderful comfort in under 10 minutes. It cost almost nothing, and children would eat it every single night if you let them. On Friday, Mom might dress it up, crush a few crackers on top, and brown it under the broiler, or fold in a can of tuna to make it a real supper. It went straight to the TV tray in a bowl. No fuss, no leftovers. Whole generations grew up on that particular shade of orange. It was the taste of being taken care of on a night nobody had the energy for anything more. First pattern break. Here is where the whole story starts, and it starts with a mistake. In late 1953, the Swanson Company badly overestimated how much Thanksgiving turkey America would buy. They were left with 260 tons of it, frozen solid, packed into 10 refrigerated railroad cars that had to keep moving because a stopped car meant the cooling failed. So the turkey rode the rails, back and forth, coast to coast, while executives panicked. Then a salesman named Jerry Thomas, so the legend goes, saw the compartmented aluminum trays the airlines used to serve meals in flight. What if you could do that with dinner? A bacteriologist named Betty Cronin cracked the hard part, figuring out how to get turkey, potatoes, and peas to all cook safely at the same temperature in the same amount of time. They packed the first trays in 1954, priced them at 98 cents, and America bought 10 million of them in a single year. A rolling disaster became the future of dinner. Number 18. Sloppy Joes. Loose ground beef, simmered soft in a tomato and pepper sauce that leaned sweet, then spooned over a soft hamburger bun until it collapsed under its own weight. That was the Sloppy Joe, and it was the perfect Friday food for the exact reason its name promised. It was messy, and messy was fun, and fun was the whole point of eating in front of the television. A pound of ground beef cost about 40 cents and stretched across a whole family once the sauce and the bun bulked it out. Your mom kept a stack of paper napkins on the TV tray because she knew what was coming. The sauce dripped, the bun disintegrated, and nobody cared because the Western was on and everyone was happy. Kids remember it as the loosest, sloppiest, most gloriously permissive meal of the week. It was the one night Mom looked the other way about the mess. Number 17, chicken a la King on toast. This was the dinner that made a family feel like they had money, even when they did not. Diced chicken, mushrooms, and little jewels of red pimento suspended in a rich cream sauce, ladled steaming over triangles of toast, cut point to point. It had a French name, a sauce that clung to the back of a spoon, and a look of genuine elegance on the plate. But a smart cook made it from a can of cream soup, some leftover chicken, and a jar of pimentos for pocket change. The frozen versions followed, and suddenly, a working family could eat what looked like hotel food on a Tuesday. Served over toast that softened underneath into something almost like a dumpling, it was creamy, warm, and quietly luxurious. Your grandmother made it when company came, and she made it on Friday when she wanted the family to feel a little bit special without spending a fortune to do it. Number 16, creamed chipped beef on toast. Every man who came home from the service knew this one by a much saltier name, and every one of them ate it without complaint. Thin slices of dried, salt-cured beef, torn into ribbons and stirred into a white gravy of butter, flour, and milk, then poured thick over white toast. The beef came in a little glass jar for about 35 cents, and it seasoned the whole gravy by itself, no extra salt needed. Veterans brought the recipe home from mess halls in Korea and the last war, and their wives recognized it instantly as something cheap and filling they already knew how to make. It was fast, it was hot, and it stuck to your ribs on a cold Friday night when the paycheck was already spent. The toast went soft under the gravy. The whole plate cost less than a quarter. It was humble, it was military, and it fed America through its leanest evenings. Number 15, beef pot pie. Before the compartmented tray ever existed, Swanson had already conquered the freezer with the pot pie, and beef was the working man's favorite. A flaky crust, top and bottom, sealed around a filling of beef chunks, gravy, diced carrots, and peas, all of it baked in a little foil dish until the pastry went deep golden and the gravy bubbled up through the vent holes. A frozen pot pie cost around a quarter and made a complete supper for one hungry person, which made it perfect for a family where everyone ate on their own schedule around the TV. The first bite released a cloud of steam that fogged your glasses. The last bite was the corner of crust, soaked through with gravy. The best part, saved on purpose. Dads loved them because they felt like a full meal. Moms loved them because there was nothing to wash. Everybody won on pot pie night. Number 14, fried chicken. TV dinner. Here is the one that outsold everything Swanson made for nearly a decade. Fried chicken, already breaded and cooked, tucked into the big compartment beside a scoop of mashed potatoes and a little pool of corn, with a square of apple cobbler in the corner for reward. You heated the tray in the oven, and the breading crisped back up, never quite as good as a Sunday skillet, but close enough to make a child cheer. A dinner ran under $1, and on Friday nights it was the most requested tray in the freezer. The drumstick was the prize, and siblings negotiated for it before the box was even open. It had everything a kid wanted in one aluminum tray, Salt and crunch and a sweet ending, all of it eaten in front of the screen. For millions of American children, this was what the future tasted like, and the future tasted like fried chicken. Second pattern break. Here is what people forget when they picture the 1950s. In 1950, barely one home in 10 had a television set. By 1955, more than half of American households had one, glowing in the corner of the living room, rearranging everything. Families that had eaten at the kitchen table for 100 years suddenly could not tear themselves away from the screen. So the furniture muggers invented the folding TV tray, a flimsy little table on legs that let you carry your whole dinner into the living room and set it down without looking away. The frozen dinner and the television grew up together, hand in hand. One made it possible to eat anywhere. The other made you want to. And somewhere in those few short years, the American family quietly stopped gathering around the table and started gathering around the box. Nobody decided this on purpose. It just happened, one Friday night at a time. Number 13, turkey pot pie. The turkey pot pie was the direct child of that mountain of unsold Thanksgiving turkey, and it became a staple in its own right. Chunks of white and dark meat in a pale, peppery gravy, thick with peas and diced potato, all of it sealed inside that same flaky double crust and baked golden in a foil tin. It cost about a quarter and delivered the whole flavor of a holiday dinner on an ordinary Friday in March. For families who could not afford a whole bird except once a year, this was a way to taste Thanksgiving any week they wanted. The smell alone, sage and gravy and browning pastry, could make a house feel festive. Your grandmother kept a stack of them in the freezer for the nights she could not face the stove. Each one was a small, warm reminder that the best meal of the year could be had for pocket change whenever the craving struck. Number 12, Swanson Mexican dinner. For most white American families in the 1950s, a Mexican dinner meant the frozen tray with the enchilada, the tamale, the scoop of Spanish rice, and the smear of refried beans, all of it mild enough not to frighten anyone. It was many a family's very first taste of a cuisine that would one day be everywhere, introduced through an aluminum tray on a Friday night. The enchilada was rolled tight around a little cheese and sauce. The tamale came wrapped in its paper, which more than one confused child tried to eat. It cost under $1 and felt genuinely adventurous, a passport stamped in the freezer aisle. The spice was dialed almost all the way down, but the flavors were new, and new was exciting in a decade of meatloaf and mashed potatoes. Whole families discovered a whole culture's cooking, badly and mildly, but they discovered it, one frozen tray at a time. Number 11, beef enchilada dinner. The enchilada earned its own tray soon enough, and it became a Friday favorite for the family that wanted something with a little kick. Corn tortillas rolled around seasoned ground beef, blanketed in a red chili sauce, baked until the edges caught and crisped, with rice and beans crowding the smaller compartments. It ran about the same as the other dinners, right around $1, and it delivered more heat than most food of the 1950s dared to. Kids who thought they hated spicy food learned to love the slow warmth that built as they ate. The cheese on top went stretchy and brown at the corners. The sauce stained the tray, and everyone's fingers red. It was messy and bold, and a little bit dangerous by the standards of the time. On a Friday night in front of the Western, a beef enchilada dinner made a quiet suburban family feel for 20 minutes like they were living a little wilder than they were. Number 10, meatloaf dinner. Nothing said American supper quite like meatloaf and the frozen tray delivered it in its most reliable form. A thick slab of seasoned ground beef under a red tomato glaze, sitting beside a generous scoop of mashed potatoes, waiting for gravy, with green beans or corn rounding out the tray. It cost under $1, and it hit every note a hungry family wanted, savory and soft and deeply familiar. The meatloaf was dense enough to stick to your ribs and mild enough that no child complained. The gravy pooled into the crater in the potatoes, and you dragged every bite through it. It was the kind of dinner that tasted like a mother had spent all afternoon on it, even though she had spent 25 minutes and 90 cents. That was the quiet miracle of the frozen tray. It let a tired woman put something that looked like love on the table with almost none to spare. Number 9. Ham steak dinner. The ham dinner was the fancy one, the tray you picked when Friday felt like it deserved a little occasion. A slice of ham, glazed sweet, often with a spoonful of raisin sauce or a ring of pineapple, laid beside candied sweet potatoes and a scoop of peas. The salt of the ham against the sweet of the fruit and the sweet potato made it taste like a smaller, humbler version of a Christmas plate. It cost a little more than the chicken or the turkey, right around $1, and it felt like a genuine treat. Grown-ups tended to reach for this one, while the kids fought over the fried chicken. The candied sweet potatoes were almost a dessert, sticky and orange and glistening. Set on a TV tray with the lamps low and the show about to begin, the ham steak dinner turned an ordinary end-of-week evening into something that felt, just faintly, like a celebration. Third pattern break. Here is the part of the story nobody puts on the box. The real hero of the frozen dinner was not the salesman who took the credit. It was Betty Cronin, the young bacteriologist Swanson hired to solve the impossible problem. Different foods cook at different rates. Get it wrong, and you either serve raw potatoes or breed bacteria in the gravy. Cronin worked nights, testing endless combinations, until she figured out how to make an entire dinner safe to reheat in one pass. She never got rich from it. Then there is the name itself. Swanson called it a TV dinner to ride the wave of the moment, and it worked so well, the whole category took the name. But by 1962, the company quietly dropped the words TV dinner from the packaging, worried it made the food seem cheap and disposable. The name stuck in America's mouth anyway. Some things, once you name them right, you can never rename. Number 8. Tuna noodle casserole. On a Catholic Friday, when meat was off the table, tuna became the workhorse of the American kitchen, and the noodle casserole was its finest hour. Egg noodles, a can of tuna, a can of cream of mushroom soup, and a handful of peas, all folded together and baked until it bubbled at the edges, then topped with crushed potato chips or crackers for a salty crunch. It cost well under $1 and fed a whole family with leftovers for Saturday lunch. The frozen versions came later, but most moms just made it themselves, eyes closed, from memory. It was creamy and comforting and endlessly forgiving. The crunch on top was the whole reason children ate it. Served in a bowl on the TV tray, it was the sound of Friday night in a Catholic household, the click of forks against Pyrex while the television murmured. Cheap, filling, meatless, and beloved. It checked every box a mother needed. Number 7. Salmon croquettes. Another Friday savior for the meatless table, salmon croquettes turned a cheap can into something that felt like a real supper. A tall can of pink salmon, bones and all, mashed with a beaten egg and a handful of cracker crumbs, a little grated onion, a spoonful of mustard, then shaped into patties and fried golden and crisp in a hot skillet. A can cost about 30 cents and made enough patties to feed a family of 6. The outside crackled. The inside stayed moist and pink. Nobody knew back then that the soft bones they mashed right in were loaded with the calcium a growing family needed. Served with creamed peas and a wedge of lemon, salmon croquettes felt like something you would order at a diner. Children who swore they hated fish ate them without a word of protest. On Friday nights across America, that one cheap can quietly kept a whole nation fed and never asked for credit. Number 6, chicken pot pie. This is the one that started the whole frozen empire before the tray, before the name. Swanson's chicken pot pie arrived in 1951, 3 years ahead of the TV dinner, and it taught America that dinner could come from the freezer. Tender chicken in a golden gravy, carrots and peas, all of it sealed in a flaky crust and baked in a little foil dish until it hissed and browned. It cost around $0.25 and made a full meal for one, which made it the perfect thing for a family scattered around the living room on different schedules. You burned your tongue on the first bite every single time because you never could wait for it to cool. The crust on top shattered when your fork went in, and the steam smelled like a Sunday kitchen. It was the humble pastry that proved the whole idea would work. Everything that came after, the trays, the name, the empire, was built on this pie. Number 5, fish and chips. Friday for millions of American families meant fish, and the frozen battered cod dinner brought the corner chip shop straight into the freezer aisle. A fillet of cod or haddock in a thick golden batter, baked crisp beside a scoop of fries and a little compartment of mushy peas or coleslaw with a wedge of lemon and a packet of tartar sauce. It cost under $1 and felt like a genuine treat, the closest most inland families ever got to a seaside supper. The batter crackled. The fish inside steamed, white and flaky. You doused the whole thing in malt vinegar if you were fancy, ketchup if you were a kid. It was the ritual of the working Catholic household, the meatless Friday made delicious, eaten in front of the television with your fingers a little greasy. For one night a week, a family in Ohio could pretend they were eating on a pier 1,000 miles away. 4th pattern break. Here is what the frozen dinner really cost, and it was not the 98 cents on the box. For the first time in American history, a woman could put a full hot dinner on the table without spending her whole afternoon in the kitchen. That was freedom, real freedom, and it helped push a generation of women out of the home and into the workforce. But there was a trade. Those trays were loaded with salt, more sodium in one dinner than a person should eat in a day, and heavy with the kind of processing that would worry a doctor now. The family also lost something harder to measure. The table where everyone had faced each other every night became a set of trays where everyone faced the screen. We gained hours, we gained convenience, we gained a woman's right to a life outside the stove, and we quietly gave up the 1 hour a day when a family actually looked at one another. Progress always sends a bill. Number 4, the dessert compartment. Around 1960, Swanson added a 4th compartment to the tray, and for a child, it changed everything. Now there was dessert built right in, a square of warm apple cobbler or a fudgy brownie or a scoop of cinnamon peaches waiting in the corner of your own dinner. No begging, no bargaining, no eat your vegetables first negotiation. It was yours, and it came with the meal. Kids learned to eat around it, saving it, guarding it, glancing at it through the whole main course. The cobbler came out hot and bubbling, the crust gone soft, the apples sweet and cinnamon dark. It was a small thing, a few square inches of pastry, but to a child in 1960, it was the greatest innovation in the history of dinner. That little compartment turned an ordinary tray into a complete experience, start to finish, savory to sweet. It was the reward at the end of the Western, and it made Friday nights perfect. Number 3, fish sticks. Here is the Friday night ritual that ran through millions of Catholic homes across America. Fish sticks arrived in 1953, breaded rectangles of white fish that a mother could pull frozen from the box and have crisp and golden on the table in 15 minutes. A box cost around 40 cents and fed a whole table full of children who might otherwise have refused to touch a fish. The breading did all the work, crunchy and salty and mild, and the tartar sauce made it a game to dunk. On Meatless Fridays, when the church said no meat, fish sticks kept the peace and kept the kids fed. They lined up on the plate beside a scoop of mac and cheese, and dinner was served before the show even started. For a whole generation of Catholic children, this was the taste of Friday, the taste of the weekend beginning. Crunchy, forgiving, and cheap enough to make every single week. Number 2, Salisbury steak dinner. No frozen tray is more burned into the American memory than the Salisbury steak dinner. A patty of seasoned ground beef, shaped to look like a real steak, drowned in a glossy brown mushroom gravy, sitting beside a mountain of mashed potatoes and a scoop of peas or corn. It cost under $1, and it delivered the feeling of a steakhouse dinner to a family that could not have afforded a real steak on their best day. The gravy was the whole thing. It pooled into the potatoes and soaked into everything, savory and dark and rich. The meat was soft, humble ground beef, dressed up in a fancy name borrowed from a 19th century doctor. Kids grew up thinking this was what a steak was, and honestly, they loved it more than the real thing. It became the very symbol of the TV dinner, the tray everyone pictures when they close their eyes and remember eating in front of the set on a Friday night. Number 1, the Swanson Turkey TV dinner. And here it is, the one that started all of it, the original. In 1954, Swanson packed that first tray with roast turkey, cornbread dressing under a blanket of gravy, buttered peas, and whipped sweet potatoes, and priced it at 98 cents. It was the answer to 260 tons of unsold turkey, and it became the answer to how a whole country would eat for the next 50 years. You slid it into the oven, waited 25 minutes while the show came on, and peeled back the foil to a cloud of steam that smelled like Thanksgiving in the middle of a random Friday. The turkey was thin, the dressing was soft, the sweet potatoes were almost dessert. But it was warm, it was complete, and it was a holiday you could have any night you wanted. Families gathered around the glowing box, trays balanced on their knees, and ate the very first bite of a brand new kind of American evening. Nothing was ever quite the same again. Here is my challenge. Make one of these this week. Just one. The tuna noodle casserole, the salmon croquettes, the Franks and beans, or the Salisbury steak with all that gravy. Then set up a folding tray, turn something on, and eat it right there in front of the screen the way they did. Drop the one you are going to try in the comments. I want to know if the fried chicken dinner gets more love than the turkey, because these were not just frozen dinners. They were the exact moment the American family left the table, and somehow, for a while, it felt like magic.